Imagine walking into your office on the exact day of your 10-year work anniversary. Your manager hands you a cheap custom mug, a printed certificate of appreciation, and a minor 3% raise. You feel a sense of pride. You think your loyalty has finally paid off and your future is secure. But here is the dark corporate matrix truth your HR department will never tell you. That 10 years of loyalty didn't build your wealth. It actively bankrupted it. Economists call this the loyalty penalty. Data shows that employees who stay at the same company for more than 2 years earn up to 50% less over their lifetime compared to those who actively jump ship. While you were busy being a good, loyal employee, the system used your basic psychological need for safety against you. They quietly capitalized on your fear of change, underpaid you compared to the market, and let inflation slowly eat your savings, all while replacing your raw ambition with a dangerous comfort zone. Today, we are decoding the brutal reality of what staying at the same job for a decade actually does to your brain, your net worth, and your freedom. You don't know it yet, but that mug is the most expensive thing you'll own this year. Somewhere, in a spreadsheet you'll never see, someone already calculated what it would cost to replace you. And it was more than 3%. This isn't a story about one bad year. It's about 10 ordinary ones, stacked quietly on top of each other, until ordinary became something else entirely. 10 years ago, you took this job because it felt right. Decent pay, decent people, a manager who said the word growth in your interview, and you believed him because why wouldn't you? You weren't lazy. You weren't unambitious. You just believed something that sounded reasonable. If you do good work, the work gets noticed, and the company takes care of you. So you stayed. Year 1, you learned the systems. Year 2, you became the person new hires asked questions to. Year 3, you got a small raise and a great year written in your review, and you told yourself this was the beginning of something. Somewhere around year 4, a coworker named Maya left. Same role as you. 2 years less experience than you. She took a job at a competitor for what felt, at the time, like an aggressive ask. You remember thinking she was taking a risk. You don't know it yet, but in 18 months, Maya will be making more than your manager. And you'll be making less than the next person they hire to replace her. Loyalty was the plan. It was never theirs. You believed that as a simple fact back then. Everyone around you said some version of it too. Stay. Build seniority. It'll pay off eventually. Here's the number nobody tells you in year 4. Job mobility research consistently shows that employees who switch companies see significantly larger wage gains over time than employees who stay in place. Compounded over a decade, that gap isn't a rounding error. It's closer to a second income that most loyal employees simply never collect. Here's what almost nobody tells you about why you stayed. Not the comfortable version. The real one. You stayed because leaving felt like free falling, and staying felt like standing on solid ground, even when that ground was sinking half an inch a year and you couldn't feel it happening. This isn't a flaw in your character. It's a setting in your nervous system. Psychologists call it loss aversion. The pain of losing something registers almost twice as strong in the brain as the pleasure of gaining something equal in size. Your mind wasn't built to weigh the raise I'm not getting against the job I might lose. It was built to protect the job already in your hand because that one felt real, and the better offer always felt imaginary. So every single year, the math quietly tilted further against you. And every year, it felt like the safest possible choice you could make. Have you ever done this? Have you ever stayed somewhere, not because you actually checked what else was out there, but because everyone around you had already decided staying was the responsible thing to do? Year 5. A friend's birthday dinner. 12 people at a long table. The question goes around the way it always does. So what are you up to now, still at the same place? And you say yes, and you smile, and you change the subject before anyone can ask what you're actually making. Not because you're ashamed of the job, because you've started doing the math in your head at dinners like this one, and you don't like where it lands. Not poverty. Something quieter than that. Around year 6, there was a senior analyst 2 departments over, sharp, the kind of person who actually read the company's compensation reports before anyone asked him to. He raised it once, gently, in a meeting, that the market data showed the whole team was underpaid relative to similar roles at comparable companies. He wasn't dramatic about it. He just said the number out loud once. He didn't get fired. He just stopped getting invited to certain meetings. 6 months later, his project quietly got reassigned to someone else. He left within the year. Nobody really talked about why. Loyalty was the plan. It was never theirs. Said again now, it doesn't sound as warm as it did back in year 4. It sounds like something you should have written down the first time you heard it. Think about the last time you stayed in something. A job, a relationship, a routine, longer than you knew somewhere deep down that you should have. What made you stay? Here's where the story stops being about feelings and starts being about mechanics. Because none of this happened by accident. What you believed was that raises were tied to performance and performance was tied to value, and value was tied to what the open market would actually pay for you. What was actually operating underneath was a much simpler rule. Compensation budgets are built around retention risk, not contribution. If you're not actively threatening to leave, you are, by definition, the cheapest person in the room to keep exactly where you already are. Internal raise pools are typically capped, often in the low single digits company-wide. That small pool gets distributed across everyone who stayed quiet and didn't ask for more. Meanwhile, the budget for a brand new hire in your exact role gets set by what the external market demands today, not by what you were worth the day you were hired 10 years ago. Which meant that the version of you who applied for your own job from the outside would have been offered more money than the version of you who already had it. This is sometimes called the loyalty penalty, and it isn't a conspiracy run by one cruel manager sitting in an office somewhere. No single person ever decided to underpay you. The system did it without anyone consciously deciding anything at all, because the incentive was never built to reward staying. It was built to reward not noticing. The system was not broken. It worked exactly as it was designed to work. The only real question is, designed for whom? Comes on a Thursday. You're in a meeting about hiring for your own team. Someone shares the budgeted salary range for the new role, your role, with 2 fewer years of experience required for it. The number on the screen is higher than what you currently make. Nobody else in the room reacts. To them, it's just a line item. To you, it's the first time the math has ever had a face. You don't say anything out loud. You write the number down on a sticky note like you might somehow forget it, even though you already know you won't. That night, you open your laptop. Not to apply anywhere, just to look. A job posting almost identical to your current role at a company down the street. The salary range is listed right there, openly. It's higher than yours by a margin that used to feel completely impossible. Your cursor sits over the apply button for a long time. You don't click it. Not yet. Loyalty was the plan. It was never theirs. This time it doesn't sound like a fact. It sounds like an apology you owe yourself. Here's the second number worth sitting with. Across a 10-year span, the gap between a wage that grows only through internal raises and a wage that resets to market value every 2 or 3 years can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time you account for compounding. Because a higher salary at year 3 doesn't just pay more in year 3. It becomes the new floor that every single raise after it gets calculated on top of. Stay underpaid for a decade, and you're not just missing one raise. You're missing every raise that should have been built on top of it. And here's the third. Retirement matching and pension contributions reward tenure in theory, but in practice, the wage gap compounds faster than most retirement matching ever manages to close it. The mug, the certificate, the slow, predictable climb, none of it was ever designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you stay exactly where you are. You've been told the smart move was to keep your head down and let time do the work for you. But time was never on your side in this story. Time was on theirs. You don't apply that night. Not for another 4 months. When you finally do, it's quiet. No dramatic resignation speech. No confrontation with your manager. No scene anyone in that office will remember. You give your notice on an ordinary Tuesday. Your manager says he's sorry to see you go, and seems to mean it, and offers you a counter that's almost insulting in how close it finally comes. 3 years too late, to what you'd been quietly asking for the entire time. You don't even fully realize what that day means until that evening. Sitting in your car in a parking lot that isn't yours anymore, your old badge resting in the cup holder. Nobody throws you a party. You almost miss the significance of it yourself. This is what the actual win looks like. Not a promotion ceremony. Not a dramatic resignation video. Just an ordinary Tuesday where the math finally moved in your direction, and almost nobody else even noticed except you. This isn't really about one old job. It happened in an office you'll probably forget the layout of within a few years. It happened to a version of you that doesn't fully exist anymore. But maybe you've already seen this exact pattern somewhere in your own life. Maybe you're in the middle of something that feels a little like this right now. A job, a routine, a version of safety you haven't truly questioned in a while. Or maybe this is the first time you've ever thought about it at all. Think of the friend who's been at the same company for 6 years, still waiting for the raise that keeps almost happening. The parent who stayed somewhere for 20 years because leaving felt disloyal instead of strategic. The colleague who is still inside something like this right now, who doesn't yet have their own sticky note with a number written on it. You probably already know exactly who that person is for you. You likely thought of their name before you even finished this sentence. Loyalty was the plan. It was never theirs. Said one final time now. No explanation needed anymore. You already know exactly what it means. The fear of leaving always felt bigger than the real cost of staying. That was never an accident either. So here's the only question worth sitting with tonight. If the system was never actually built to notice your loyalty, what exactly have you been waiting all this time for it to reward?